Tuesday, July 15, 2025, Oldsmar City Council meeting. If everyone could please rise. Before we have our invocation, I would just like to take a moment of silence to think about Corey Chester Sr. and his wife Jessica Chester and their son Corey Chester Jr. and their entire family and their extended family down here in Oldsmar, remembering the loss of their young son, as well as to take a moment for Stephen Phillips of the Parks and Recreation Board and his business Air Zone, his business family here in Oldsmar, as well as his extended family, philanthropic man, actually an award-winning businessman. We're very saddened to hear of his passing. Thank you. Tom, could you lead us in prayer?
Our Father in heaven, give us the power to clearly discern right from wrong. Allow our words and actions to be governed thereby and by the laws of this land. We ask for inspiration to strive in our endeavors to serve the public. We also ask that you direct us so that above all things, we will discharge our duties to the benefit of the people we serve. This we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item on our agenda is our Citizens Open Forum. Anybody wishing to address the council can come up and give us your name and address. You have 5 minutes on the clock. You can also fill out a card down front, the green cards. I have one green card tonight, so we will call up Tom O'Shea first. Hi, Tom. How are you?
Pretty good, you? Tom O'Shea, 208 Lake Charles Court. There's a presentation today on the CRA, continuing it or not. I'm disinclined to continue it for several reasons. On the report, it said there was a score of 46 out of 100, and it said I think we're like the second highest scoring or whatever. But in that scoring include 5 points for being a coastal high hazard area, which I feel like all of Oldsmar, especially south of Tampa Road, is high hazard. And then it included, it said that 5 points went to being not having any targeted employment areas, but there's 2 areas right next to it, not inside of it, as much as we're trying to make downtown. And then it got all the points for blight, but it included all the dead ends as blight, and then the open swale drainage for the next to the streets. And of the dead ends, I feel like they're kind of there on purpose because a lot of the dead ends go right into 580, and we've had a lot of discussion about speeding. I think extending those roads into 580 would just increase traffic and speeding in the residential areas, and I feel like that would be problematic if we were to get rid of those dead ends. It mentions several of the dead ends it mentions in the report I don't think are in the CRA. It said Pine Ave and Arlington, and those are not on the map itself that they had in their report, wasn't part of the CRA. And then most of Oldsmar seems to have the open swale side ditch areas. And then it also mentions St. Pete Drive, which we are working on, provided we can fund that properly and able to get that done. And like I said, the city's also in talks of working on downtown as it is, bringing in building and infrastructure across the street. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I don't have any other cards up here, but would anybody on this side of the room wish to address the council? Hello, Liz Martin.
Liz Martin, 3119 Phoenix Avenue, Oldsmar. I don't know if anybody, if any of you have heard, but there was in June, there was something called Operation Dragon Eye that went down, where they was the largest rescue effort ever in Florida's history, recovering 60 critically missing children. These children between the ages of 9 and 17. They'd been trafficked, child endangered, due to child endangerment, trafficking, and custodial interference. All of these children had been groomed and or coerced. I bring this up because on June 25th of the same month, we had Senate Bills 1620 and 168 pass, and this reform for access to mental health just kick the door open for a whole lot more of vulnerability for kids, because the language is now changed to include minors as young as the age of 13 to consent to outpatient mental health, including telehealth. So without parent approval or notification. They're limiting parents' access, and even if the provider determines if the provider would determine if the minor is capable of informed participation, the clinical assessment for this comes from the schools, and divorce and separation plans would decide whether or not that gets hammered out between whatever parent had permission to do whatever with that. So there's a ton of risk here, but no safeguards, just for public awareness. We're normalizing secrecy in our most vulnerable minors. And we need to be really cautious about that as parents, as a community, as a whole. And I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention. And from a personal experience, not more than a week after my son passed, there was a licensed provider that was using my son's picture to promote her business. And they're out there. I'm just telling you, licensed and not licensed. But I'm just telling you that they're there, and we really need to, as a community, put our arms a little bigger around our kids. And with that, I will also ask to speak on item number 10. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Liz. Anybody else on this side of the room wish to address the council? Anybody on this side of the room? You're in the middle. I don't know what to do with you. Come on up.
Good evening, Mayor, staff, council. David McKinley with the Upper Tampa Bay Chamber of Commerce, 101 State Street, right downstairs. So thanks for hosting us yet again. Liz, thanks for bringing that up. I'll tell you, one of the things that, as a chamber, we're working on right now, positively for the youth engagement, is a new entrepreneurship program that's going to come into the Saturday markets that we're currently running here right across the street, in which kids will have a chance to kind of come through, find out what it's like to be a young entrepreneur, build a business from the ground up, and then we'll have some mentors. So if anybody's interested in being a youth mentor through that process, please contact me downstairs, and we'll set you up with that opportunity. Additionally, for the youth, we've got the Saturday market that continues to kick off every Saturday. That's from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. The next one that we have this Saturday, the following one is going to be at the end of the month. That's July 26th. We're going to do a little bit of a Christmas in July type of event, and in association with the Oldsmar Support Services Alliance, much like we did the winter swap meet. We're going to have an opportunity to bring some things out there, so we're going to expose them with some new potential customers along with all of our other vendors. And then over here underneath the big tree, we're going to put up a bunch of the tables and chairs. And so people will be able to bring in back to school supplies, for the kids, gently used items, things of that nature, that we can kind of bring something, but also please take something. And then at the end of that, that's a no cost fee. At the end of that, anything that's still unused will go through Oldsmar Cares and some of the other programs that we have in the community to give back. Any questions on those? Thank you much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Okay. Anybody else wishing to speak? Okay. Hello. This is your cue. Good evening. Hi.
Hi,
What's your name?
my name is Avery Carullo, and I am a junior Girl Scout from Troop 1847, and we are working on our Bronze Award, one of the highest honors for Girl Scouts. To earn the Bronze Award, we wanted to educate the community about being prepared for hurricanes, so we worked on a video to urge more people to take the Oldsmar Pledge to evacuate. Please roll the video.
Wow, wait, can you tell me your name too?
I'm Katie Griffin, and I'm also a junior Girl Scout with Avery.
Thank you guys for coming tonight. It's so nice to see you.
Join our Girl Scout troop today and take the Oldsmar Pledge to evacuate.
Hello, residents of Oldsmar. Did you know that your city has some of the busiest roadways in Pinellas County? I'm here with Troop 1847, and we're here to tell you about hurricane preparedness.
During hurricane season, this major road becomes an evacuation route.
When evacuation orders are given by Pinellas County, it's important to know what zone your property's in.
How do I know, you ask?
It's simple. Type in your address on the Pinellas County website. Your zone will be identified. I just typed in Oldsmar City Hall, and it's in Evacuation Zone B. This website will show emergency shelters that are also open.
Have a furry friend or special needs to consider? The information is also on the website.
I'm next to the Oldsmar Public Library, and these houses on the left are in Evacuation Zone A. If your house is in a zone that's ordered to evacuate, you must evacuate as soon as possible for the safety of yourself and others.
Knowing your zone is a big deal. Then you'll know when to move to a non-evacuation area. This could be a shelter, hotel, or even crashing at a friend's house. If you're welcome. Can I stay here?
Sure. You don't have to travel very far. You just have to go to an area that isn't required to evacuate.
Yay! I get to stay at this amazing house. Once you have a safe place, look for roads marked in blue. These are designated evacuation routes to make travel easier and safer.
Join our Girl Scout troop today
and take the Oldsmar pledge to evacuate.
Ladies, oh my goodness. That was absolutely incredible.
Amazing.
And critically important information, but I don't know if any of you have acting classes or if you just naturally come off that way. That was incredible.
I actually do take theater.
Do you really? Well, it shows. You guys did a great job, and it was informative, but also a little bit funny. There were some really cute moments in there, and you're doing something that's really important for our community.
Thank you.
Wow. How does it feel making that video?
Great.
Really good.
Yeah,
It feels good to help people, you know.
I agree. I agree.
Mayor, would you like to take a picture? I think we should take a picture.
I think we should definitely take a picture. Vice Mayor, that is an excellent idea.
You guys take a picture with us?
3 stars.
We're gonna come down there.
Yeah, you guys come right here. Do you ladies think we might be able to use that on our website?
Yeah.
Yeah? That would be such a treat.
Instantly a million views. Thanks to Mike. Everybody's user accounts.
Okay with going viral?
It's very important to me.
And the girls have been working on this actually for a couple years now. Learning about water, learning about the environment, learning about hurricanes and how to prepare.
You can tell by how many cameras there are.
Troop leader.
Troop leader.
Troop leader. Yeah, you're the troop
You
leader.
guys were on that.
We were,
Yes.
yeah.
We're seeing you guys gathering information then too.
Yes. Let me do this right quick. I'm sorry.
It's okay, take your time. Here we go.
No, I just want.
Okay, we have to take the pictures again.
Great.
You have to have it, there we go, okay.
You guys have been fabulous with our troop. We really appreciate everything the last couple of years. The girls have learned so much. Hold on. Thank you.
Yeah, that was informative too. Thank you.
Oh,
Buzzer.
That's perfect, so make sure everybody's paying attention. Thank you so very much for sharing that with us, ladies. We really appreciate it. And you are, of course, welcome to stay for the duration of our meeting. Is there anybody else who wishes to address the council? I don't know. That might be hard to follow. Okay. And the next item on our agenda is our community minute, which will be read by our city clerk, Ms. Kristen Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor.
Pledge to Evacuate. This important initiative encourages residents to take proactive steps by committing to a well-prepared evacuation plan that includes your residents, property, and family members. You can find more information at oldsmarstrong.com. Lend Your Memories Toy Story. Have a vintage Monopoly game sitting in the closet. Remember spinning tops and the lemon twist. Who still has a Cabbage Patch doll? These joyful items brought people together to play and make memories. Now you can share those stories by loaning your item to a special curated collection to be displayed in August. Bring items to the library or the Historical Museum by July 31st. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Next, we have the approval of addition of new agenda item, that is item 16. The chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. The next item on our agenda is under the Community Redevelopment Agency. Item number 1, the presentation of Pinellas County Local Designation Evaluation Review for the Community Redevelopment Agency and Special District. That's a mouthful. Would you like to introduce? I can read it or you can read it.
I'll
Okay.
be happy to read it.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the presentation of the Pinellas County Local Designation Evaluation Review and the Community Redevelopment Agency and Special District. The Oldsmar Community Redevelopment Agency was established in 1994 with the initial Community Redevelopment Plan adopted and the Redevelopment Trust Fund created in 1996. That original plan envisioned a 30-year horizon spanning from 1996 through to 2026. Based on these dates, the current term of the CRA is presumed to expire in 2026. Community redevelopment areas are governed by Chapter 163, Part 3, Florida statutes. As a charter county, Pinellas County has adopted additional requirements for municipalities seeking to establish, operate, or extend CRAs. These local requirements must be met in addition to state statutory obligations. To evaluate compliance with Pinellas County CRA policies, the City of Oldsmar retained GAI consultants. The evaluation resulted in a score of 46 points out of 100 for the Oldsmar CRA, which could qualify the district under the county's designation of community renewal. The community renewal category allows for up to a 20-year extension. From 2026 to 2046, Laura Smith of GAI Consultants will present the findings in more detail. If the City Council wishes to pursue an extension of the CRA under the renewal designation, the following steps are required. First, to accept the findings of necessity, formally accept the local designation evaluation through resolution of both the Community Redevelopment Agency and the City Council. Step 2 would be to transmit the required documentation, submit the feasibility analysis and the tax increment financing projections to Pinellas County via certified mail for review. Step 3 is if the county determines that the submission complies with its 2021 CRA policy, the city may proceed with updating the Oldsmar CRA redevelopment plan. Step 4 is plan update and adoption. Update the CRA plan in accordance with Florida statutes and the county's CRA policy. Adoption must occur by both the CRA and the City Council. Step 5 is Pinellas County approval. If the plan is adopted locally, the Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners would consider amendment to its Code of Ordinances, Section 3869, to extend the CRA and the CRA Trust Fund. If the City Council wishes to move forward with an extension process, a recommended motion would be to place the item on the tentative agenda for both the Community Redevelopment Agency and the City Council, an item to consider a resolution to formally accept the findings of necessity, the evaluation report, and the TIF projections, request an extension of the Oldsmar CRA, and transmit the findings of necessity and TIF projections to Pinellas County for formal review. If the City Council does not wish to pursue an extension at this time, no further action is required. Laura Smith from GIA is here to give a presentation.
All right, Laura. It's been a minute.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I hope your 2025 is going about as rapidly as it feels like it is for everyone.
Yes.
Okay, so I do have a pretty quick and concise presentation to run through with you all regarding the local designation evaluation. As the city manager just explained, the local designation evaluation is required because Pinellas County is a charter county, so they have adopted that standard as to how they will go about evaluating the potential for extend, expand, or creating CRAs. So at this point, the two things that you're being evaluated under, or your community redevelopment agency and specifically your area is being examined as, are the Florida Statute Chapter 163, which is the slum and blight conditions that you would have to still comply with. That's where the finding of necessity comes in, is to determine that those conditions exist. Whether or not you're going to tackle those items is not the purpose of the finding of necessity, simply to identify that they exist. Because those are the criteria that Florida statute requires under the finding of necessity standards. And then you have the Pinellas County Local Designation Evaluation. That is because they are a charter county. You are located within Pinellas County, and so therefore the city's CRA is subject to those evaluation criteria as well, in addition to complying with Chapter 163, Part 3 of Florida statute. So these are all things that have to be evaluated for this process to move forward. And like I said, this doesn't require you to take any action on the items that are identified. It's simply their scoring matrix that we then compare against the current conditions within your CRA, and then that we evaluate against the finding of necessity standards within Florida statute. That's just, it doesn't mean that you have to move forward on anything that's identified there. So how do I pull up the presentation? Oh, okay. I didn't know if I needed to grab my laptop. That's in the car.
It will appear magically. I don't know, I think
If it doesn't-
we should watch the Girl Scout video again in the meantime.
Probably.
She can't queue up both things.
That was
so-
really good. I was seriously impressed. That was really cool. I mean, I've filmed a lot of peanut butter and jelly videos recently. It is not easy. It is not easy, and they did a great job.
It's not easy.
It's not easy. You have to sound like extra happy and excited about everything. I wish I was that self-aware when I was your age. You girls are ahead of the curve.
I was a Girl Scout, but I never did anything that cool.
You what?
But I was a Girl Scout when I was younger, but I never did anything that cool.
Yeah, I didn't do anything that cool. I only made it to the daisies.
Oh, I was
Then we
like a
left
second
Michigan.
year junior.
Oh, look at you.
Man, I hit brownies and was like, never made it past
I
that.
was in for a long time.
Okay, so again, we're gonna talk about the local designation evaluation. So of course, there's a process and a purpose behind all of this, but ultimately, we're gonna talk about the categories that you can get, the scoring methodology, how those findings were determined, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about your TIF projection estimates, the assumptions that went into those, and what they look like over just the next couple of years that you have of collections, as well as the 10 and 20-year outlook, so that you can understand kind of what went into those numbers, and then also talk about what your next steps are, even though I think Felicia's covered your next steps pretty effectively. So ultimately, our goal here is to assess the feasibility of extending the CRA beyond 2026. And again, as we talked about the local designation evaluation, this is a uniform system. So all of the special districts within Pinellas County are held to this same standard if they want to create a new district, create a new redevelopment agency, extend the timeline of their existing agency. So again, going beyond the 30 years that most were originally set up as, or the 20 years, depending on when they were established under statute, or to expand the actual area. So all special districts inside Pinellas County would be subject to this same evaluation criteria. So that's why it sort of normalizes, so that they're all held to the same metrics of consideration. And then they also want to figure out how much of those activities align with the county's current goals and objectives from an economic development and redevelopment perspective. So in these categories, you have the option, based on the scoring, to be identified within one of three categories: urban revitalization, community renewal, and economic development. Urban revitalization is the most distressed areas. Poverty is endemic in these areas. They are subject to things like HUD and CDBG grant programs, and there is a prevalence of low and moderate income individuals within those areas based on Pinellas County's interpretation of that category. Community renewal are areas where you are experiencing ongoing challenges with investment and redevelopment, or where it has not kept pace with the rest of the area surrounding it. So where maybe your redevelopment area isn't redeveloping or seeing investment occur at the same pace as the city it's within or the county more broadly. But they also are experiencing stronger economic performance than the urban revitalization areas, where they would be the most distressed areas. And then economic development areas where they're experiencing stagnation, that ultimately there's opportunities really to diversify and invest, but they're not to the level of community renewal standard. So they kind of fall in a tiered system. So ultimately, the scoring is based on a scale of up to 10 for several of the categories. Some only have 5 points eligible, some have 15 points eligible. But what you'll see here is these are categories that come largely directly from the US Census. So they actually, in the methodology from the county, they either directly identify the census table that you have to use, being, they'll identify you have to use census table B1259 or something like that to go and find the specific data set they want you to compare. We then have to compare that for the CRA itself against the city and the county, or in some situations, only the county. So what we've done here is followed each one of these criteria and then awarded those scores based on a metric that is included within that evaluation system. If you have our full report, you'll see that some of these say, is it less than 1.1 times that of the county, it gets this many points. If it's greater than 1.1 times that of the county, it gets this many points. So it's all creating one baseline, and then the multiplier effect against that tells you how many points to award in that category. So of course we have percent of households below poverty, median household income, the percent of the area qualified for CDBG, demonstration of blight factors, that's going to come back to the finding of necessity standards built into Florida statute, your coastal high hazard areas, unemployment, tax value trends, activity centers and target employment areas, percent of households that are housing cost burdened, median residential values, and mobility. So we evaluated all of these criteria, documented that within the analysis that we did. So essentially this has all been truthed out. We've done everything that the county requires in this evaluation process. So this is theoretically ready to move forward for their consideration should you decide you want to go down that path. So the scoring standard says that if the value that you score is greater than 74 points, you fall into urban revitalization. If it falls between 45 and 74 points, it falls into community renewal. And if it's below 45 points, then it's in the economic development category. These categories are important because they speak to what the county's participation rate may be and how long they're willing to extend for, and what your performance standards will be along that time frame. So depending on which one of these categories you fall into says whether you can extend for 10 years, 20 years, whether you have to have 5-year midpoint evaluations or annual midpoint evaluations. All of that is the criteria then that fall into the category you're assigned. So as you can see here, the evaluation findings for Oldsmar CRA scored a total of 46 points, which puts you into the community renewal category. And you'll see where some areas, yes, they exhibited all of the standards. Other areas were none. Some were only partial points. But you do see here that, for example, the demonstrated factors of blight right out of Chapter 163, we were able to document all of those in existence within the community redevelopment area, which awarded the full 10 points for that. And of course, you all know you're in a coastal high hazard area, so. So these findings basically mean that as community renewal, this area has been found to be experiencing ongoing economic hurdles. Investment and redevelopment has not kept pace, but conditions are not as severe as the other. The county goals that align with this relate to affordable housing, economic development and employment, as well as mobility. So those are kind of those factors that would have to come into play should you all decide you want to move forward with extending the time frame of your CRA, and the county accepts all of that and we update your plan, we would need to factor in these goals to align with the spending of the county's portion of the contribution. So we then went in and looked at your trust fund and your redevelopment areas increment revenue over historical time period, these next couple of years that are upcoming, but then also looking out into that foreseeable time frame. We know that if you decide to move forward, the county would be considering a 20-year extension. You could reduce that. You could ask them for 10 years if you wanted to. That's completely your call. But if we looked out over 20 years, what we would see is that from 2027 to 2046, the agency's projected at a 50% participation rate. Because I do want to keep in mind, we're showing 95 here. That's going to drop down to 50 in those projection years based on everything that we have documented for community renewal. So right now, these numbers are probably higher than they should be because we're not factoring in a 50% participation. We were doing this based on assumption of 95%. So you'll see here that while we're assuming 95% participation, that number is going to change if you decide to move forward. This also does include the sale price of the library site at $382,000 and assumes that group of properties that is known as the City Hall site would sell in 2027, which is actually beyond the sunset date, but that would generate, about 1.2 million or something in that range. I know that number may fluctuate a little bit here and there. The taxable value appreciation shows a 6.3% compound annual growth rate. That is consistent historically with what the CRA has actually been experiencing. So we're carrying that forward, and of course that doesn't build upon the revenues that would come off of the sale of those properties. Those are just hard inputs into the year that they're expected to occur. And if it assumes the millage rates, of course, stay what they were at the time that we did these projections, which was based on your 2024 tax roll. So that would be 4.6 for Pinellas County and 4.05 for the city. So if we're talking about those first couple of years, so 2025, 2026 is your current participation standard. That's your 95%. Everybody's contributing as they have been historically since the redevelopment area was established. You'd see about $1 million going in 2025 and about 1.1 going in 2026. Assuming the CRA sunsets in its current year, which is 2026, that's the last year you would collect revenue would be the 2026 tax year. Now, you could continue spending any money that's in your trust fund for another 3 years beyond that if you allowed it to sunset, assuming you have projects identified for those funds to go to. So you would need to identify all the projects that remaining fund balance is going to be directed to within those 3 years. Anything you don't spend in those 3 years, you would have to think about refunding back to the taxing authorities unless you've made other arrangements with them for those funds to be used differently. So in the subsequent years, in the 10-year period from 2027 to 2036, now we're going into our 50% standard. You'd be looking at about 10.5 million in those 10 years of revenue coming into the trust fund. And then in the 20-year period from 2027 to 2046, it would total up to about 28.6, 28.7 million, which is of course already including that 10.5 I just talked about, because it would be your first 10 years and then the full 20. So that essentially gives you an idea of what you could expect to see in terms of trust fund revenue over that time period at a lower participation rate based on the county's criteria. Your current participation rate at 95% would only be for this year and next year, essentially. And then after that, if you choose to extend, it would drop down to a 50% match, the county contributing 50% and the city contributing 50% for those properties. So, assuming that you decide you want to extend, then the next step, as Felicia described, would be formally transmitting the analysis and the TIF projections to the county for determination of compliance with their 2021 CRA policy. And then if they find that compliant based on their evaluation, you would need to update your plan to show the extended timeline, incorporate the additional criteria that the county would like to see in there, specifically as it relates to their own economic development and redevelopment strategies that they feel are appropriate for redevelopment areas. And then, of course, bringing everything into compliance with Chapter 163 of Florida statute for anything that may be out of date for recent legislation that's passed. Now, if you choose not to proceed with extending the operational timeline, as we've kind of discussed, you would need to start the process of closing out and terminating your CRA, understanding that next tax year, 2026 tax year, would be the last year that revenue comes into the trust fund, and then identifying how you're going to use your remaining trust fund dollars over the next 3 years to eliminate those monies out of your trust fund to avoid having to refund those back to the individual taxing authorities that contributed them. But that would be the timeline you have essentially, which would be those 3 years. And again, like I said, the last dollars that would go into your trust fund from your increment revenue would be coming from the 2026 tax year. So with that said, does anyone have any questions about the evaluation? Or the TIF projections, or how any of this works, or any of the fun stuff?
Okay, let's start down there and we'll move it on down the line. Councilmember Swager, do you have any questions?
No questions, but just, discussion later,
My
or
discussion.
now.
Councilmember Knapp?
No specific questions at this moment. I think based on discussion, perhaps some, but nothing like burning right at the moment.
Okay.
No specific questions for me.
Any questions, Vice Mayor?
Just one, the CRA, so just so you can clarify for everyone who's watching, especially after the Girl Scouts, the millions who will be paying attention to this meeting. The CRA funds are generated from the CRA district, correct?
Correct.
When that match comes in from the county, where can those funds be spent? Only within the CRA or throughout the entire city?
So statute is very, very, very clear on this. It is probably the most clear that it can be. If the dollars that are generated from the redevelopment area, which in this case is the Oldsmar Town Center tax increment funding special dependent special district, that specific boundary, the tax dollars are generated from it. They cannot be spent beyond the boundary of it. And that boundary is very finite. It does not mean, oh, well, we only ran the line down the middle of the right-of-way. That was our bad. We still want to spend money on the other side of that right-of-way. No, the line is where the line is.
We learned that the hard way.
Yeah. So if you drew the line down the middle point of a right-of-way, a roadway, that means you can only spend dollars on the side of the roadway that's on the district's side of that line. You can't do both sides of that road. For example, you can't plant trees on both sides with CRA trust fund dollars. Now, the city can still plant trees over there, but the trust fund that generated those dollars, or the area that generated those dollars into your redevelopment trust fund cannot fund anything outside of the district. Now, there is a way around that, and there is only one way around that, and that is to get all of the taxing authorities who contributed those dollars to, in writing, agree that you can spend it outside of that district, which means you'd have to get Pinellas County, yourselves as the city, and of course, any other participating trust fund or taxing authorities. You don't have any in this situation, you just have the two, but there are plenty of jurisdictions who have multiple taxing authorities contributing, like port authorities and other special districts that may, hospital districts, things like that, that may be participants. And then you would have to get each of their approval to spend the money outside of the district and a formal authorization allowing that to occur, and you have to do it on a project-by-project basis. They can't just give you a, yeah, sure, spend it wherever you want kind of thing. They have to look at an individual project, approve that individual project, and all the taxing authorities that contributed the dollars have to agree.
That's all I had, thank you.
Okay.
There's also restrictions on what you can and can't spend the dollars on, by the way.
Understood. I mean, just put
Yes.
simply, if the money is generated within the CRA, we reestablish this boundary, we go through the entire process for the other 20 years. Any amount of that money has to be respent within the CRA. So if there's an issue at Olds Park, which is outside of the CRA, none of the money generated from the CRA can be used to update Olds Park, correct?
That is 100% correct.
Thank you.
And being that City Hall, for example, is inside the redevelopment area district. So assuming the project that's going to be built there goes forward and City Hall is relocated, you cannot spend CRA dollars to build a City Hall. It's actually specifically prohibited from building public safety, police, fire, and city administration buildings with CRA dollars, unless you get all of the taxing authorities to agree to it. And assuming you wouldn't be building it inside the CRA again, you'd be having to get approval again to build it outside of the CRA. So that's like 2 levels of approval. But yes, it's very restrictive what you can do with those funds, and keeping in mind they are not an additional tax or an additional levy upon those properties. This is just a contribution of the amount above a base year. So if a property was worth $100 back in 1996 when you were established, that $100 is still the tax base for that. Is still contributing into the county and the city's general fund the way it always has. It's the amount above that. So as it grows from $100 to say $200 over 20 years, that $200 with your millage rate against it, 95% of that is what goes into your redevelopment trust fund. But it doesn't actually, it's not an additional levy, it's not additional cost to anyone, it's just a redistribution of the existing dollars that would have already been realized into a specialized fund to be spent within a specific area.
Gotcha. I got a lot of Post-its.
I can see.
I hope they're fun colors.
They're not. They're just yellow. They're just yellow.
I'll see, now I'm gonna have to get you some crazy color
And,
Post-its.
well, okay, before I get started with my questions, which I'm sure everybody's just super eager to hear.
I love CRA questions.
You know, I think
Kind
it's
of a thing.
important to take a minute here and realize where we're at. You know, I've got some questions about the report itself, but in general, I mean, I think that folks need to know that, you know, we've got $1 million home in our CRA. Like, I mean, for all purposes, we kind of did it. We accomplished what is largely the goal of every CRA, in my opinion. You know, the home value in the CRA increased, 9% last year, whereas the rest of Oldsmar increased only 4%. You know, and it's, I mean, to Vice Mayor's question, gosh, I'd really like some of that extra percentage for, for example, I was reading Laura the blight factors, and I've got some notes on all of them, of course, as was raised by one of our citizens. But I thought to myself, isn't it kind of ironic that there's this data, which I have questions about, regarding crime in the CRA and the number of EMS calls in the CRA, but if we extend the CRA, or even as it is right now, we can't spend CRA money to fund, say, fire rescue, or to pay for the, what was it, 7% increase in the sheriffs? We love you, I'm just saying. The 7% increase in the sheriff's, cost for providing, police. So it's kind of a push-pull, right? There are definitely strings, a lot of really, really tight strings on this stuff. A couple of things I just wanted to ask you about. You mentioned that there was specific data that you needed to use for some of the categories. Mm-hmm. So when I was looking at the narrative portion of the report, just after, I guess I'm looking for a page number for you. I guess on like page 10, starting on page 10 of your report. Mm-hmm. So I looked at, percent of households below poverty. Right. And it notes under that first orange heading, the number of households below poverty in a 12-month period and total number of households for the Oldsmar CRA was calculating using the geographical proportion of data from its 2 contributing census block groups, 273.201 and 273.202. So a question that often arises here is that 34677 Oldsmar, or is that incorporated Oldsmar? So of course I had to ask that question, and I got a map too, super fun. So these two, and I don't even know if you're aware, are you aware of these 2 sections? Okay, so I don't know if the council's aware, but like these 2 sections, these 2 blocks, that went into calculating this number also captured, I don't know if you guys can see this, all of this area outside of the CRA. So we're talking Country Club, Timber Bay Circle, you know, Patty Drive, all of Oldsmar, because the CRA is just a little bit up right here, right? But if that's the data that either you have to use or you're required to use, I'm not sure, but you know, it's certain things like that that made me question our category. And then similarly with the employment density was also calculated using, I call it 201 and 202, these two blocks, which again captures a large segment. So if we include households that are in certain areas that are older parts of Oldsmar, you might be capturing additional lower income households, for example. And conversely, if you're capturing, you know, more wealthy neighborhoods, you might get data skewed the other way. Same thing with employment density. I looked at page 12 of your report, the one with the little yellow circles. Mm-hmm. Do you have a list of those yellow circle businesses within the red dotted line, the Oldsmar CRA boundary, that employ those people? Because I was like, what businesses are those south of 580? I know it's a small area, but south of 580 that have the circle that's between 101 and 1,000 employees. I was like, wait, was Baycare here there then? Like, what? Do you see what I mean? Like the.
So they don't give us a list of the businesses because that is considered proprietary information. The businesses don't have to tell you how many employees they have. So this data is pulled directly from the census longitudinal employment dynamic survey, where we can actually draw a shape file in and it will give us exact data. However, it will not tell us which business did what, because these also, the other piece of data that connects to this is wages, hours, poverty level,
competitive
education level,
data.
all of this stuff. So they
Okay.
will give us data, but they have to aggregate it so as to keep proprietary information from the business operators private. So this is pulled from the Bureau of Economic Analysis and Bureau of Labor Statistics data sets that are submitted by every individual business owner through the state. The state data rolls into the census. And then it's populated geographically by the LEHD system through the U.S. Census Bureau. But they cannot give us that kind of data. It would breach confidentiality issues with the business owners. So what we're seeing here is where that address was reported.
So it could be a PO box address. It could be.
It could be a lot of things. We run into one issue a lot of times with county seats is school district. We will get a massive amount of employee amount listed within the county seat, like a city that's the county seat, specifically within. Like if we're looking at their downtown area where maybe the school district head offices are, we'll pick up
Elementary.
all of their employees there. Well, that's countywide employment. But when you look at educational services, it'll be, 80% of employment within that area will be shown as that because it's picking up every employee in the school district out of the main home office of the district.
Gotcha.
So we run into these issues where the data is obviously not perfect,
Yeah.
but this is as close as we can get to reliability.
Okay.
And like I said, a lot of this is not really our decision to make. It's what Pinellas County decided they were going to use as a matrix and a metric for measurement. So on the prior page, when we were talking about the census block groups, for example, the census doesn't report on specialized geographic areas like CRAs.
Right.
They have statistically specific areas that they report data on. But Pinellas County wants only census data to be used to the greatest extent possible. Well, the Oldsmar CRA is not a statistically represented census district. So the U.S. Census doesn't collect data specifically on the Oldsmar CRA. They collect at the tract level, the block group level. So the lowest we can get to is the block group in terms of the smallest amount of geography, and then we have to pick up those that represent the CRA as close as possible. So it's not a perfect system, but it's the system everyone has to use, so that at least gives us a standard of error that everyone is experiencing, where everybody's data is going to be slightly skewed because it's picking up areas that aren't exactly reflective. Now, I will
the
say
one is
this,
closest.
even if hypothetically we had drawn that system in and said, okay, well, instead, what we're gonna do is draw this into, Esri Business Analyst and pull the data out of there for this specialized area. That is, again, just going to be a statistical representation of the land area captured within a larger census reporting area. So for example, when we've got 2 block groups, even if I had drawn that in, it wouldn't have given me exact data for you. It would have told me, okay, well, that means this percentage of this larger block group
Gotcha.
is this. And it's not based on households or population because they can't measure that smaller than the smallest statistical representation by the US Census. So we have to work within kind of the parameters we're
those
given
parameters.
for their designation system. There are some things that I don't love about it and that I don't think are probably the most reliable, but it's the system that they have established at the county, and so it's what everyone is being held to as an equal standard, as flawed or
Yeah, and you'd agree,
error-driven as that may
maybe
be.
a little bit internally contradictory too, because then under housing affordability, they want not these 2 blocks, they want just the larger block, 0.20, which incorporates, forgive me, Liz Martin, the whole West Oldsmar area, which some is incorporated, some is not, as well as,
Yeah, the methodology is
South
not
Oldsmar.
perfect, I will say that, but
Yeah.
it seems like they made an effort to try to figure out a way, understanding that community redevelopment areas are often very uniquely shaped. They're
Yeah.
not gonna be consistent or follow any real system or method, and they didn't wanna tie everything exclusively to tax roll data, which obviously would have been the easiest thing to do, because we can get that down to exactly.
yeah,
numbers,
those charts
right?
from Twitty's office for what's exactly in there, I know those are right.
Yeah, so those are all coming directly from the tax roll, so we know
Right.
that data is accurate. That would be the only thing that we could really universally say is specific to the CRA's boundary exclusively.
Right.
Because we wouldn't be able to get, for example, incomes that are only for the CRA. In order to do that, again, we're kind of tethered to this broader area, and then we're gonna get a percent representation. Now, those people who work in that specific area, we can get that data because Bureau of Labor Statistics and Bureau of Economic Analysis collect that data at a very granular level, then they assemble it. But there are a lot of barriers to data collection when we're dealing with CRAs, which is largely why we do rely so heavily whenever we're doing, CRA redevelopment planning, when we're updating plans and doing strategic, like 5-year strategic plans for CRAs, we rely heavily on community involvement. Because we need to hear from the public what the actual issues are. We can get traffic counts, of course, we can get calls for service, we can get stuff like that, but
Right.
like even the crime index, for example, we can't get that data directly from the sheriff's department or law enforcement because it's highly protected data. I can't pinpoint
Right.
that stuff on a map. We could get some of it at the aggregate level, but we won't get down to the real details. It would be too easy for people to then identify where a reporter came from or where a victim may be located. So a lot of this gets back to, while I love our state and our sunshine laws and all the transparency that comes along with that, we also need to protect victims, and issues like that create some data barriers when we get into these really small areas.
And if I could just stop you on that, the crime and the EMS, as I mentioned, that money is tied up, but the
Now, you can do
Count-
community policing with CRA trust fund dollars, which is considered very loosely defined as innovative community policing, and you can come up with innovative community policing strategies that you can implement within a CRA, but that does not mean like hiring additional police officers only to be in the
Or
CRA. It would be
paying
things
for additional firefighters.
No, it would
Yeah.
be things like installing cameras or, doing a night watch program where you facilitate that occurring, or, it would be creating some sort of specialized program within the area. Now, it may be, you may have your law enforcement helping you identify strategies, but you wouldn't be able to like pay for an additional officer to patrol that area.
And the crime index and the EMS data is a fraction, essentially, the number of crashes or the crime index number divided by the acreage to create the decimal estimated per acre.
Correct.
But the city acreage is compromised of, thousands of protected wetlands and parks, and we're all very proud of that, but it doesn't, right, it doesn't come out in the data again.
It's the same for the county
Yeah.
because they have those same protected
Right.
areas and water bodies, and so it's a
Right.
normalizing factor. You may have a larger concentration of those than other cities,
Right.
but they're looking at it as, if we're looking at the county as a whole, we have to look at the city as a whole, even if those areas are
Right.
protected, because it would actually skew the data much worse if we
Right.
made the city's geographic area smaller.
Smaller.
And the same would happen if we then tried to remove all of that out of Pinellas County. We would invariably miss something if we
Yeah.
tried to then make those adjustments, especially for things that, like parks. Those are not always as easy for us to pull from a map, especially their
have-
actual areas.
You gave a good example of somebody who was paying roundly $100 in taxes and then the amount above that. And we have, a couple of examples of people who've owned their homes in our CRA for, a really long time. And then, we've got, for example, the Paint It Up, Fix It Up grant, right? So they can get a grant to paint their homes. So there could be a year where conceivably we're literally paying them back more than they paid to us in taxes, which is really wild.
And I mean, just for context, so your base year value, the CRA's base year for the whole area, all the properties combined, the value of all those properties in 1996 was 16.8 million combined.
Yeah.
And as of 2024, 132 million
I mean, that's what I mean.
is your taxable value for all of those properties. That's not gross just market value, that's just the taxable portion.
I don't do math because I'm a lawyer, but I'm sure somebody would say that's exponentially
Yeah, it's
math. Yeah.
it's about double
math's
over
down.
20 years, which is no small amount for a CRA to increase. Pinellas County has been, obviously, values have been going up pretty substantially over the same time period, the city's values as well. So of course, the CRA is also growing, not growing quite at as fast a pace as the county as a whole or the city as a whole.
Right.
And in some years, actually, the CRA has grown faster than, or at a higher rate.
At a higher rate, yeah. And then
Specifically in 2024, I believe it was, actually. The
just last
CRA's
year.
year-over-year change percent was higher than the county's.
Yes. And, I mean, we just had, speaking of success, we just did a groundbreaking on the library property for 82 townhomes and with a developer, and we gave away 0 tax incentives, 0, nothing, which is pretty amazing. I mean, when you think about, what is happening in some of our other communities, and I think I brought this up at the, I don't know if it was our capital improvement workshop about Tarpon, and I ended up looking it up, and now I've lost that Post-it. I'm sure it's somewhere special. Tarpon's score was actually 86 for the area that they were proposing, bounded by US 19 and kind of their existing CRA, and I think the county commission was split, but they voted in favor of it, but they were split. And then I didn't realize, but I was informed that Safety Harbor just got an 8-year extension on a score of 23 for their continuing efforts downtown. They want to underground utilities, they want to brick the road again, a bunch of other, projects and that work for them.
And that does come back to those goals, right? So your plan update, should you choose to go forward with this, would need to include components addressing affordable housing, whether that's simply to preserve and improve the existing housing that's of the affordable nature or create new. And then you also would have to cover economic development and employment, and then of course mobility. So those are 3 things that are absolutely going to have to be something you're spending those trust fund dollars on. So whether or not those are actually things that you need within the redevelopment area or that are in some way deficient or, that you could actually contribute those dollars to, because you're theoretically, if you went out for 20 years, you're gonna have $28 million. And a portion of it needs to go to these 3 categories within your plan for.
Nice sidewalks, really, really nice sidewalks. But
On bike paths and
point taken.
jogging trails and,
And they'd have to be specific projects, Mayor, correct? They'd have to be
Yes.
specific
Yes,
projects.
specifically
Just- And
identified.
I'm not asking, but I'm.
And the county
speaking to
would
the-
come back and do interim evaluations of those. You would have to have midpoint reviews of the projects that you've done and that your funds that they contributed, their 50% coming in, went towards the projects that are within these categories. So that's another reporting criteria that you're gonna be held to under the county standard.
And Pinellas County actually requires us to do that annually.
Oh, annually, okay.
An evaluation
other
and
counties are
review
different.
is also known as audit, correct? Evaluation and review is a nicer way to say audit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so
Yes.
we'd have to be showing that we were doing all
Right,
of these
that we're
things.
doing
And
it
they'd
for
have to
those
be
purposes.
specific, correct?
Yeah, and we, CRAs require additional paid audits as well.
Okay.
So so separate from the city's audit, we pay separately for a CRA audit, which is also required.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And the CRA audit is to make sure that the funds that are in your trust fund are being expended only on things that are permitted to be expended, but also to document those funds, make sure they're staying in the proper accounts and that they've all been accounted for correctly. It also goes back and looks at your capital improvement program, because anything that is listed in your city's capital improvement program cannot be funded as a CRA trust fund project if it's been within your CIP in the last 3 years. So if you put a capital improvements project in your city CIP and then you want to use trust fund dollars to fund it, it has to come out of your capital improvement program and stay out of it for 3 years before you can fund it with trust fund dollars. So there's a lag that occurs there if you've already got some things that may be identified in your city's capital improvement program.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
So the city has their 5-year capital improvement program that identifies all the capital projects you're gonna do over a 5-year horizon, and you keep that updated regularly. It's like a rolling 5 years.
Right, we just had a presentation. Yeah.
Right, so if you put, let's say, new sidewalks in there, and it says you're gonna do new sidewalks all along a specific roadway, and your funding mechanism is city general fund or impact fees, whatever the case may be.
Okay.
If you then decide, wait a minute, a portion of that is in the CRA trust fund should be paying for the portion that's in there. Well, now you've put it in your city's capital improvement program, which means you've already allocated a funding source for it. And because the state is very particular about CRAs becoming slush funds for city projects, if it's been there, you have to remove it and then wait 3 years before you can add it to the CRA's project list, because that protects the CRA's trust fund from becoming sort of a borrowing mechanism for when the city general fund maybe doesn't have enough funds for something.
And just to put a quick point on that, our city has always been extremely meticulous about, in our capital improvement budget, funding sidewalk for CRA under sidewalk for CRA fund. I don't know the fund number right now, 109. It's very specific in our CIP that this is coming from 109 or it's coming from general fund. So we've been careful never to do that because we are cognizant of making sure that we never get caught up in doing that.
Which is much better than a lot of jurisdictions, I will tell you. I work with a lot of CRAs in a lot of cities, and I routinely have folks say, wait a minute, what do you mean? And I'm like,
Yeah, we have a
what
whole-
funding mechanism did you show in your CIP? Well,
Right.
we said general fund and impact fees. And I'm like, well, your trust fund is not the general fund. You didn't list the CRA as a funding source there. Therefore, you cannot spend CRA dollars on it since it's a city capital project.
We actually have Tatiana present on the 109 fund specifically as to what's coming out of the CRA for that purpose. It creates a nice distinction of exactly where things are coming from.
So you have your financial audit that you
Yeah.
have to do, just like your city.
Yeah.
Your comprehensive annual financial report that you do is essentially your city's audit, and then you have a very similar audit that is done
Right.
just for the CRA's trust fund. And then you also have your annual report that has to be issued under the state requirement. You have a
Yes.
year-end reporting that is now new that the legislature put in a couple years ago, which they have
So
to do
fun.
year-end.
Yes.
This adds the fact that you already have to report to Pinellas County annually. Extending under this program would put you under an additional layer of scrutiny for Pinellas County.
And that's
Where instead of just their regular annual that you would have to submit to Pinellas County in addition to all these other the state requires you to do, they would have these mid-level reviews where they would do a deeper dive into the activities and programs and funding and projects of the CRA.
And all of this assumes that the state legislature doesn't kill the whole thing next year,
Pretty much, yeah.
which they almost did this year.
Yes, that assumes that they don't decide that the sunset date for all CRAs, regardless of year of establishment, is,
Okay.
2026.
I've generally covered most of my discussion items. Does anybody have any other discussion items or questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question, just for public record, in case people are at home hearing this. I just want to clarify that this is for the specific outlined area that's already part of the CRA. This is not talking about extending it to other areas people might have thought should have been included in the CRA. This is extending only the exact area that's already designated.
That's correct. Nothing that has been analyzed thus far would involve expansion of the CRA. Keep in mind, expanding the CRA is something that you can look into. That would require a finding of necessity of those expanded areas.
Right.
Where we would need to study those. Now, assuming that you went forward with that, you expanded your CRA, you added more properties to it, understand that that means that area of expansion that was not part of the original will have a new tax base year.
Okay.
Of the year of expansion. It doesn't go back to 1996 when the original area was created.
Okay.
It gets a brand new base year for the year it was created. So the old area stays in its 1996 base year, but this extension gets a new base year for whenever you extended it, which means it's not going to generate revenue for a while
Okay.
until it starts creating its own increment. There's a 12-month lag, of course, between taxes being generated, collected, and then distributed back out to you. So all of those things take time for those dollars to actually be realized. But we tend to tell folks, with a new base year, you can expect about 5 years before you're really starting to see increment revenue generate in any significant or notable way where it might actually fund projects of substance, of significance. You could probably fund smaller projects, but
And in
otherwise you're going to be
addition-
waiting for accrual.
In addition to expanding, we could always evaluate whether or not we wanted to do a different CRA, not
Yes.
connected to this CRA, so long as the legislature doesn't kill it.
Yes,
But that
creating
is
new
something-
districts is
Yeah.
still possible right now. There are many cities that have multiple districts. There is a limit of how much of your city can be within a redevelopment area in its totality. There's a percent standard there, but you're nowhere near that at the moment. So if you wanted to evaluate other areas, they do not have to be contiguous. They don't have to be touching. For example, if you look in Tampa, they have 8 redevelopment areas, I believe. And some of those are actually extensions of existing. So like I think Ybor has been expanded 3 times. I still consider that one redevelopment area. It's just got 3 expansions. But in total, if you look at those, I think they have 8.
And I
So-
believe the discussion at the county level was, with Tarpon Springs, was they have one that's going to sunset in 2031, and they were trying to create a new one. That was the
Yes.
request. And the request was just to move forward, which I believe would be the second step, maybe third. If I'm not mistaken, we currently have $4.7 million in our CRA fund. Is that correct?
That is correct.
With anticipated, it's going to be added to. Is that correct?
That's correct. Currently, we have about 4.7 million of unencumbered funds.
Okay.
We anticipate spending those funds on the current CIP, which includes St. Petersburg Drive.
Okay.
So that we're looking at going out to bid again. And we're hoping to have that out to bid this fall, and then having a bid and awarding it very soon, either holiday time or early 2026. And then we would have 3 years to spend that money. But the bulk of the money has been put aside for St. Petersburg Drive.
Understood.
Any other questions, discussion?
I have an observation followed by a question, because I was starting to math over here.
See?
Yeah, it was happening. So based on looking at this projected TIF revenue, and I know it's just a projection, are we really realistically expecting to nearly quadruple the taxable value within the city in 20 years, and basically be north of $500 million in taxable value for the city? That seems a bit aggressive, because I was poking around on several properties within the CRA, and at best I see 2x, 2.5x, 3x, maybe some outliers, 3.5, 4x, and maybe that would be where Mr. Real Estate can pop in. I would kind of like to know more a little bit about that methodology because it seems not conservative in the estimates.
That 2x, 3x, that's from 96?
I'm looking at from the last 20 years.
Oh.
So
So the-
2004 to now.
So the big contributor that you're going to deal with is the fact that you have two projects that are going to come out of the ground that were on your tax roll of 0. So your city hall site was on the tax roll at $0.
Major assumptions chart from this page.
When that project builds, its value is essentially all going into your CRA trust fund. As soon as that hits your tax rolls and is realized, if it stayed at the 95%, that would all be going in there. You're going down to 50%, which means 50% of the taxable value from both the city's side and the county's side from that entire project goes into the CRA trust fund
And stays there.
and stays there, and you've got to spend it. The same thing with anything else that builds that's currently on public lands. So for example, the stuff adjacent to the library site that's coming out of the ground, your residential development that's coming online there, same thing. That was not on the tax rolls because it was essentially publicly owned lands. It's now going to become privately owned lands, and then those parcels individually come onto the tax roll at essentially a base value of 0. You're picking up all of the incremental rise. That's the whole purpose of the increment system for CRAs.
Right.
The goal is redevelop sites, get investment into them, and elevate their value as aggressively as possible because you're seeing an area that has become underinvested, undeveloped, or just generally neglected from the fair market's perspective. They haven't, public dollars aside, investment hasn't happened there. So
because
you're
the
using
city's owned it
public
for
dollars you're leveraging essentially your increment
Right.
to encourage private investment. And then there's a point where that snowball effect just runs on its own, and the public dollars no longer need to be there to leverage for that activity. So the whole purpose of creating CRAs, the whole understanding in state statute is use public funds as leverage to attract private investment. Establish that, then once that sort of you get over the hill, theoretically the private market should take over and those funds are no longer needed to stimulate that investment. And there are areas in the state where that has been a never-ending uphill battle. There are plenty of CRAs who have struggled and tried and done everything they can to attract private investment, and they just can't get it to come into their areas. You all are in a very different situation, especially here over the last, 5-10 years, where this area has become much more a focal point for growth, for development, for new investment. And so you have these areas where you can use those dollars and you can use the land that's been acquired with those dollars over the years to leverage as a way to attract private investment. So when we talk about these big jumps, these two projects are two of those big jumps. And if they are the catalysts that the goal is for them to be, then they act as bookends in a domino effect, essentially, pushing inward and then allowing for development of a lot of other properties because private investment, public investment spurs other investment. So we run all of the properties in the entire CRA through what we call our redevelopment opportunity index. We've built a model for this to determine the probability or likelihood of redevelopment of a specific property. It factors in a whole bunch of criteria specific to that piece of property. Its utilization, meaning how much of it is actually improved versus how much of it is still raw land, the age of the structure, the ratio of the value of the land to the improvement value. If the improvement value is, less than 100% of the value of the land, that's not usually a good indication that that improvement is much longer for this useful life. And it's likely a prime redevelopment opportunity.
I
So
don't mean
then
to
we
stop
create
you, I
new
just-
statistics for those.
I want to make sure that we get all of our questions answered here. Did you have any additional questions? Councilmember Knapp?
I guess it sounds like I should keep investing in real estate because I guess we're not going to have any market corrections or unforeseen circumstances to where things may flatline or go in the opposite
We
direction.
have not seen any indication to expect that at the moment. We actually just did a pretty extensive analysis of some market trends in other areas of the state where we were doing a bunch of comparable jurisdictions. And while we have seen some correction following the pandemic and the 2021, 2022 spikes, We've seen some corrections, but those are not universal across all property types. They seem to be very specific to certain categories of residential uses, and other categories of residential uses are not seeing the same impact. So we're really trying to take what we've learned from that and this little sort of swing of correction that occurred following rampant demand due to short supply during the pandemic. We're seeing some of that normalize and that curve soften back out. But what we're not seeing is a true decline in overall taxable values for all property uses. It's really been in very specific land use categories, very different than what happened, back in 08, 09 when we had that situation.
Your point is taken over the next
Sure.
20 years.
Yeah.
Councilmember Swager, did you have any additional questions or comments for discussion?
Y'all are so smart. That's all I gotta say. Just listening for the past, I don't even know how long.
I had most of the Post-its, but go ahead.
No, I appreciate the report. It was very informative, very detailed. But to me, like big picture, if I knew nothing about Oldsmar and I came to this area and someone said, is this downtown area blighted? To me, I would say no. And I moved here in '96. I was obviously younger, but it's become improved. I mean, as someone mentioned earlier, there's $1 million properties right down the street. And to me, it's one of the most sought after areas in our downtown area from a real estate perspective, to be completely honest. You've got the allowable uses of ADUs in this area. I mean, it's just beautiful scenery. So to me, if I knew nothing about Oldsmar, I would say that this area is not blighted. So I think the purpose was fulfilled, from when it was established roughly 30 years ago. In watching the Board of County Commissioners discussion on the city of Tarpon, it didn't seem like they really had an appetite for CRAs. They're having a work session in August, so maybe something for us to consider, because we'll still have some time to discuss this in the future. But overall, I really, from the findings of the blighted, how was it described? Yeah, the demonstrated blight factors. I mean, dead-end streets, open swales. I've got open swales on my street, and most of us do, really. Is your property blighted? Maybe. Depends
That's
on
one
who
of
you
those
ask.
things that's always tricky
Takes a
when we
long time to
create
cut the
new
grass
CRAs,
sometimes.
is having to tell folks, look, I know we have to call this area slum and blight, but that is just because that's what it's defined as in
Right.
statute. It's not intended to be a dig or in any ways a negative connotation. It's just an identification of issues. So open swales are an issue. They're identified in statute as an issue. They're an environmental concern as far as Florida statute's concerned. Those standards have been in there for a very long time. Properly managed open swales are not creating environmental issues, but it's the standard we have to follow because it's what statute says is considered one of these things. So if they exist, they meet that criteria.
And I would argue that, buried culverts throughout the entire city would give us flooding issues more than open swales, because you don't have any percolation. So, I mean, I guess
Point taken.
you can
Yeah.
argue it anyway. But I think the biggest finding is, some of the structures who've got, deteriorated roofs and sidings and things like that. And we've had this incentive to where a homeowner can apply to receive essentially free money. It's a match. And I don't know how many homeowners take advantage of that, or have historically.
As many
but
as you'd think, but yeah.
I think if we've got 3 years left, let's say we decide not to move forward, if we have 3 years left to spend the funds, maybe social media push to just spread the word that these funds are available for a small window of time. The underground utilities idea, I don't know if I saw it on the report or just heard it in discussion. I think that's good if we have funds left over for that. But the real kicker to me is the new baseline of values. If we say let's extend it, but the baseline jumps up.
Oh, that
Like-
doesn't happen if you extend, only if you expand.
Only if we expand.
So if you
Expand
made
the
the
area.
area bigger,
Okay,
the
understood.
original area would still keep its base year of
Okay.
1996. It's only the new area that would
Gotcha.
have a new base year.
Okay.
And then, so you end up with 2 base years inside your it's not that uncommon. For those of you who maybe aren't familiar, it is not that uncommon to have multiple base years. There have been many CRAs that have been expanded time and time and time again. Like I was saying, for example, I think Ybor City's CRA has been expanded
New
3
section gets
times.
the new year.
So each expansion, that expansion area gets a new year. But just extending your timeline would not create a new
Okay.
base year. It would just, from Pinellas County's perspective, change their participation rate from 95% to 50.
Understood.
And 50 is the minimum they're allowed to participate under state statute.
Okay, does anybody have any additional questions or comments?
Only to say, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that work session has been scheduled and it's July 31st.
July
And so
31st,
it was
okay.
just in case anybody was making notes about that. If I'm not wrong, it's July 31st, but I didn't have anything else. Thank you.
There's no additional discussion, questions? I thank you for your report.
The only thing I would add is we are not making a recommendation. GAI is, that's not our
Understood.
purpose here. Our purpose was to do the analysis and provide you with the information so that you can make a decision. Every CRA is unique, every city is unique, every jurisdiction has priorities and issues that they need to look at and address individually. So while extending a CRA may be in many's best interest when they have the opportunity to, in others, it may not be. So just understand, taking the whole picture into perspective is big here. And I think you've all brought up some really important points about why there may be reasons to rethink extending and why maybe there are reasons to extend. But you don't have to go to the full 20, even if you decide to extend. You could always ask the county for only 5 more years or only 10 more years. Those are certainly options. It's all a negotiation going forward.
Thank you, Laura, for the productive discussion. We appreciate you.
Thank you all so much.
The next item on our agenda is our consent docket, which will be read by our city clerk, Kristen Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 2, consider approval of the minutes of July 1st, 2025 council meeting. Item 3, consider approving payment to legal counsel for June 2025 legal services. Item 4, consider reappointments of regular members Marc Brill, Howard Steffensmeier, and Cleveland Smith to the Board of Adjustment. Item 5, consider appointment of Jessica Villafana to the regular member vacant position on the planning board for the unexpired term of one former member expiring August 3rd, 2027. Item 6, approve agreement for SCADA consulting services, PB 24-002, confidential agenda item. Item 7, approve single source purchase of Neptune products and services related to the water meters and registers from Ferguson Networks per notice of intent to single source 2024-013-SS.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to pull anything?
Item 4, please.
Thank you. Item 4. The chair will entertain a motion to approve items 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 4.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to pull it so that we could recognize a couple of the members that are here for their reappointments tonight and publicly thank them for their service thus far and continued service.
Gentlemen?
Care to say anything?
Would you like to name?
Make a pitch before
Counsel.
we decide your fate?
Sales pitch for the Board of Adjustment? We have to have you up at the microphone, gentlemen. You got to capture it for all those at home.
You didn't come just to sit here.
Everybody's all dressed up and everything. Oh, by the way, a very happy belated birthday, Mr.
Oh, yeah, happy birthday, Mr. Brill.
So what we saying here?
Good evening, Mr.
Good
Smith,
evening.
Mr. Brill.
Thank
How are
you for the consideration for reappointment. Like I said, I've served on the board like forever. Good 27 years now. Cleveland not far behind me, but I would appreciate your consideration for the next 3. I guess that'd be our term.
Yes,
Everybody behaving on that board?
of course.
Mr. Smith, you wouldn't tell us any lies, right?
No,
Now, the number 3 for appointments on here, is he behaving?
of
Is
course.
Howard good?
It's true. It's true. Mr. Steffensmeier, we're all familiar with him, and it was lovely to see you guys at the volunteer appreciation dinner.
Thank you.
Any other questions for our esteemed long-term members?
No?
Thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you, gentlemen, very much, and for coming out tonight. It's always good to see you. The chair will entertain a motion to approve item number 4.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations, gentlemen,
Thank you very
and
much.
thank you.
You guys are safe.
The next item on our agenda, number 8, presentation of the Florida Municipal Communicators Association Certificate of Excellence in Government Entity.
Thank you, Mayor. The City of Oldsmar has been honored as a recipient of the Certificate of Excellence in Government Communications Governmental Entity for 2025 by the Florida Municipal Communicators Association. This certificate recognizes local governments across the state of Florida who have established and utilized different tools, resources, and technology to communicate with residents effectively and efficiently. Only 16 governmental agencies from Florida earn this prestigious certification. This is the 3rd consecutive year for the City of Oldsmar to be recognized for our communication efforts. Deb Ritrelli, Public Communications Supervisor, is here to present the award.
Thank you. This certificate is a true testament to the city's council's continuous initiative towards community engagement within our residents and our businesses and stakeholders. So you shall be applauding yourselves. So thank you. I'll present this certificate after the next the award. So yeah.
This is true.
Thank you. Item number 9
Yes,
is the
go ahead.
presentation of the Florida Municipal Communicators Association Outstanding Award for Collaborative Marketing Campaign.
Because we don't just win once.
No. The City of Oldsmar was honored by the Florida Municipal Communicators Association with the top outstanding award for the collaborative marketing campaign, Pledge to Evacuate. Only two finalists per designated category were selected from multiple entries across the state. The collaborative marketing campaign was judged on areas such as creativity, consistency, and community impact. The campaign's collaboration with Mike Bolin, a respected Oldsmar resident and the owner of Mike's Weather page, provided a trusted local voice to reinforce the importance of evacuation. The goals of the ongoing Pledge to Evacuate campaign are to enhance the City of Oldsmar disaster preparedness by encouraging residents to commit to evacuation plans during the hurricane season. The campaign aims to raise awareness about the importance of timely and safe evacuation in the face of potential impact on our coastal community. By promoting proactive measures and fostering community engagement, the initiative seeks to reduce the risks, ensure safety, and build resilience across the city. The objectives for Pledge to Evacuate are to increase awareness by educating the public about the critical and life-saving importance of evacuation plans, drive engagement by motivating residents to take the pledge, thus fostering a sense of responsibility for their personal safety, strengthen community resilience by creating a collective mindset of understanding the necessity of evacuating, promote access to resource by providing residents with tools and information necessary to make informed evacuation decisions, and to enhance local preparedness by ensuring residents have a clear plan in place. Also, our Pledge to Evacuate has now been recently expanded. I see from our from the Girl Scouts that we're going to add to our social media and our website, so thank you all. The prestigious award reflects the dedication and teamwork of Public Communications Division and the City Manager's Office toward providing informative content in line with the City Council's priority. Deb and Mike?
Oh, thank you again. We have a really special video competing against you guys. Just kidding. To show you tonight for the outstanding award. So if you could roll the footage, please.
As we say, I already saw an awesome video.
Hurricane preparedness through a multi-channel approach that included social media, print, video, and community events, targeting all residents, especially those in evacuation zones A and B. The campaign promoted personal commitment to evacuation plans. Key elements included a website pop-up, a custom video with a local weather expert, social media badges, and strategic print placements. Launched at the annual Hurricane Expo, the initiative achieved high engagement despite a small budget and team.
No, thank you. I'd like to thank members of the public communications team who contributed to the success of this marketing campaign, and that's Mark McGinley, our multimedia coordinator, and Barbara Schulte, our public communications specialist. In addition to some of our traditional marketing campaign efforts, the city launched its Pledge to Evacuate video, featuring our guest here tonight, Mike Boylan, Oldsmar resident and host of Mike's Weather Page. Thank you, Mike, by the way, for your time, talent, and for your continued support and assistance to your city. The video showcases the importance of being prepared as a coastal community and the dangerous impact of flooding, storm surge, winds, emergency response, all while encouraging viewers to take the city's official pledge to evacuate. So roll footage number 2, please.
She's good at this.
You're fine.
Hey, Mike Boland here, proud Oldsmar resident. As host of Mike's Weather Page, my passion for weather shows that while tracking and sharing on social media how weather impacts local areas, such as my hometown. My contributions and weather website, spaghettimodels.com, were honored, winning the Tropical Meteorology Award from the Governor's Hurricane Conference. Hurricane season experiences vary year to year. That's why it's so important to be prepared and take the City of Oldsmar's official pledge to evacuate. This segment explains why. At the top of Tampa Bay, Oldsmar, Florida is a central connection for many residents of Pinellas, Hillsborough, and Pasco counties. This view alone here from Ariel's Park entices people to move into this amazing city. Because of Oldsmar's location, we are considered a coastal community. Any property within our city limits here in Oldsmar is subject to flooding and storm surge. This includes properties located north of Tampa Road. Flooding events can occur when rising waters from heavy rain breach the coastline shores, lakes, and ponds. This overflow has nowhere to go except to expand. When water rises, vehicles cannot be driven in these rising or standing waters. Once water hits a certain height, vehicles begin to float, making the vehicle undrivable with an extremely dangerous scenario for those inside. Winds also impede these evacuation efforts. Downed power lines, trees can block potential routes out of our town. Wind can also damage roofs and siding. Items left outside become falling and flying debris. Vehicles are even blown off of roads. Emergency response teams cannot even perform their normal duties once wind speeds are determined to be dangerous for their safety. That's why it's crucial to be aware of weather events for your welfare. Leave earlier than later, and most importantly, prepare. Take the Oldsmar pledge to evacuate today by visiting oldsmarstrong.com.
Needless to say, thank you again, Mike, for your contribution and continued support to Oldsmar's pledge to evacuate. Although this was launched last year, it continues to be a vital marketing campaign each hurricane season for the city of Oldsmar. So, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd ask Mike to say a few words
Yeah.
to you as well. So.
Totally unscripted here. I talk a lot. So, 1921, our town was destroyed with a hurricane, right? We use that a lot, and I always thought that people forgot that, and last year we were reminded of that. So I really appreciate the city doing stuff like this. I think I'd like to see us become like hurricane leaders for the whole nation. Winning this award, I think, our younger generation is amazing. We got people moving here, we're growing. We're not going to hide from the water. The water threats are real. 90% of all hurricane deaths are water related. So, looking down the road, I would love to see, Oldsmar, I would contribute, I'd love to see water marker signs in the Veterans Park where Helene was. We have history from the bank building. Just kind of bring a little more hurricane vibe to our city because, we're hurricane strong. And I think that's going to be a selling point to future businesses and schools and kids and anything I can do to contribute to that. I got a weekly show on Fox Weather now tomorrow, and they always put Oldsmar, and I'm so proud of that.
So cool.
I feel like I brought a little bit of awareness to our little city here, and so I want to continue that. I plan on living here a long time, so anything I can do down the road with kids and you know, our youth. That's been the most inspiring thing for me is this younger generation. So I'm really proud of y'all.
Yes.
It really means a lot. And you're going to live here your whole lives, hopefully, and education's the key. So just thank you again for letting me do this kind of stuff. And I think Oldsmar kind of helped me establish who I was early on by past city mayors, Beavis, and others, you know, recognizing me. And so I feel like we're all a team. Looking forward to working together down the road. All right, thank you.
Yes. If everybody could come down so we could take a photo
Yeah.
with this incredible award, well, technically 2 awards.
You just forward me a picture.
Oh, you get in there.
No, but I'm saying you send me the picture.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Squish together a little bit. Squeeze in, squeeze in. A little bit more, Mike. There we go. All right, 1, 2, 3. Let's go in. And one more. Very nice. Thank you. All right.
I know. We should just forward it to them.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Deb. Okay, the next item on our agenda is city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 10 is consider adopting Resolution 2025-16. As some background, on May 20th, the council discussed proposed revisions to Resolution 2023-27 regarding ex officio teen members on advisory boards. At that meeting, the council gave some direction to the city clerk and myself relative to revising that resolution. Some of that direction was related to eligibility. You wanted us to update the criteria to include individuals up to age 18 or through the conclusion of their senior year of high school, whichever occurred later. You also wanted us to include language expanding participation. That was in regard to adding the Public Arts Advisory Board to the list of eligible boards. Teen members would be serving on these boards as non-voting ex officio members. You also wanted us to address volunteer hours, so we've clarified that participation may qualify the volunteer for service hours, including those required by the Bright Future Scholarship Program. In addition, you wanted us to provide for recognition. We've added provision related to teen members who attend and actively participate in a minimum of 5 advisory board meetings. They will be eligible to receive a certificate of recognition. As for the application process, applications will be submitted to the city clerk's office. No formal council appointment is required. And with regard to the program structure, you wanted this to be a program rather than an appointed position, and that it would be officially named as the Future Leaders Program. In that regard, it came before the council on July 1st for consideration. It was postponed to today so that the mayor could be here for this agenda item. I'm going to go ahead and read Resolution 2025-16 by title only. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Oldsmar, Florida, establishing a Future Leaders Program instead of teen board member position on advisory boards, addressing eligibility, volunteer hours, and teen recognition, repealing Resolution 2023-27, and providing for an effective date hereof. That was the reading of Resolution 2025-16 by title only.
Thank you. I believe we have a member of the public who requested to speak on this item.
Yeah, Liz Martin, 3119. I don't get out much, sorry. 319 Phoenix Avenue. I had a question about this whole process and this whole thing. What is it that we're trying to accomplish with this? That's what I really want to understand that.
Do you want me to answer the question?
Yeah,
Oh,
somebody.
okay. I can tell you what I'm trying to accomplish, but I cannot speak for the rest of the council.
I'd like to know from everybody. I mean, I don't know when it started. I understand why we're trying to shift it. I also understand why we are shifting away from that. So I need to understand what we're trying to accomplish.
I mean, I'm happy to start. For me, I notice that often the ex officio or non-voting teen positions on the advisory boards are often vacant. And so I think in addition to a couple of other factors, I think several years ago, I actually brought up a shadowing program, like a mayor for a day program. The idea is to expand ways and find ways that our younger people can become involved and invested in our city and feel like they have a say, that they have a voice, that they are being listened to, and that what they say matters to us, matters to the decisions that we make. To that end, I'm very grateful that this item was postponed. I have a couple of thoughts. For example, expanding this down even to 5th grade, because I feel like there's a chasm, if you will, between the way that our K through 5 students, well, actually PK 3 through 5 students at both Forest Lakes and Oldsmar Elementary are made to feel very much a part of our community. And then they sort of leave a very warm, cozy nest here and head off to Carwise, or perhaps if they're in a different situation, they might be eligible for a charter situation or a lottery if they, I can't remember the D, it starts with a D, it's an acronym. But the overarching problem seems to be that then from 6th through 8th grade, there's some kind of identity loss. I'm afraid of it for my own children. And any way, for example, these beautiful young ladies that are here with us tonight, any way that we can help our children understand that when they raise their hand to do something for their community, they will be loved and appreciated and recognized. And we want more of it, all that you're willing to give, because we want you to come back here, grow up here and move back here. I grew up here, and then I finished college. I came back here, I bought a house because I want those young ladies to sit up here someday. I don't want people to move here from other places and not understand our history and our culture. I want them to feel embedded here. And I have a sense of losing some of that. Another thing that bothers me is that there is a bit of a disparity, not a bit, it depends on who you talk to. I think there's a disparity between the kids who are from Oldsmar and the kids who are from Oldsmar 3, 4, 6, 7, 7 when they go to Carwise or when they go to Eastlake. And to me, it stems from everything. So for example, you live on one side of the road. To do Little League, you got to get this rec card, and to, the kid on the other side of the street, they live in the city of Oldsmar, so their rec card is different. Or yes. You can, so that was another thing about this that I was hoping to change. Like, if we want to invite all children to, and they're children to me, I know they might be 18, but if we want to invite them all to be a part of something like this, it's got to be to anybody. It's got to be, and I know maybe if there's a limitation, God, I hope there's overwhelming response, but it's got to be, not only do we go to the same school, but even if we're not both in incorporated Oldsmar, if we both go to the same school, can we be on this cool thing together? Can we continue to be friends in that way and bond in that future relationship so that we're not continuing to create divisions among our children?
No, it's a very valid point, because it has come up several times in all the health
fractioning.
research and yet the
fractioning socially, and we are a very, very special city. We've already talked about it a lot tonight in different contexts, but this and the way that I perceive that we raise our children and the love that we put into them, I want them to come back here. I want their input. I've even thought about finding some teens who might be interested in helping us make this even better. You know, what do they think? Do they think that it should be an appointed position? I don't know. So anyway, I'm gonna stop talking for a minute. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm gonna open the floor.
Any,
Hi,
aye.
staring right at me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was there any other public comments that you wanted to say other than the question you had?
No, I'm literally asking about that because you brought up a lot of the same points that why, because I've asked personally why they're not. And we have a concurrency issue, literally disconnected from the time they leave in 5th grade and get through the 6th grade time frame. By that point, they're really disconnected. There's no connection. Like most of their day, their life is spent either on a bus or 45 to 50 minutes away on average. I'm talking about, and this is it. Not only does it cause problems for the city in terms of your engagement from them, but it's directly correlated to all of the mental health issues that we were talking about with this specific age group. It is a major issue that we need to kind of have a discussion about as a city. And then once you do a further separation of the Oldsmar versus 34677, those kids don't understand that. Now you just created a whole new level of separation and you're outside of the bounds. And a big chunk of the kids that are in 34677 that do go to our Oldsmar schools, they're feeling really disconnected because now I don't belong to Oldsmar, I don't belong over here, I don't belong. It's bad. So I just wanted to bring it up and really ask, because I think with all of the absurd amount of data and information and actual input from these kids, that aligning what their needs and their questions and what they're looking for, right, their interests, along with what it is we're trying to accomplish, which I think we all agree is we want to keep that tight-knit Oldsmar thing going. We're going to have to come up with some creative ways to help make that happen. And some of the stuff that Dave was just talking about when he came in was, we were talking about entrepreneur stuff. These are things we're considering, and there'll be more discussion on it, but I would really like to hear you guys' feedback on it.
And if I may, Mayor?
Thank you.
Public comment?
Look, is there any other public comment on this item?
Okay.
Okay, seeing none. There's no motion, but go ahead.
I can make one, if you'd like.
It would probably be appropriate. Tom's
Open
nodding his head.
discussion? Yes.
For the purposes of discussion, if you'd like to make a motion.
I make a motion to adopt Resolution 2025-16, establishing a future leaders program.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Would you like to add some discussion, Vice
I
Mayor?
would, and just, Liz, thank you so much, and the things that you're pointing out are very important. What the mayor pointed out was also very important. I think what I saw when one of my friend's children had attained the age of 13. She's very involved with school. She's very involved with cheerleading. She's an excellent student. And so what I explained was, I think this would be a good idea for you to be on these boards for a myriad of reasons. Not only are you exposed to different types of careers, you're exposed to different types of people. So when you sit on the boards, it's not necessarily a governmental function. You might be exposed to a lawyer, to an engineer, to a paralegal, to a real estate executive. So it's, for me, I don't think ex officio team member meant much to anyone, because when I spoke with her parents, who I've known for almost 30 years, they said, "What does this mean?" And they had no idea. And so I tried to explain it, and it was kind of so over their heads. So there was seedlings of discussion kind of all throughout that. So what was discussed was, hey, if this is a future leaders program, they might identify that as more attractive. If this is, you're definitely going to get a certificate of recognition, well, that's going to help me in the long run. You're definitely going to get Bright Futures considerations, well, that's going to help me in the long run. And not only that, you're going to get exposed to everything. Now, I'm willing to expand what is going on. The entrepreneurial program with the chamber that Dave McKinley spoke about earlier, as Liz mentioned. Working with Liz to come up with ideas, since you had the ear of the kids, and saying, hey, you know what? I don't know if I'd like to go to an advisory board meeting, but it would be really cool if I got to do this. And it's something that we might not know. And so I'm fine with that, but I think the initial thing was, let's get as many of the teenagers and even younger people involved, so they're involved early, they're involved often, and they get to establish those relationships with the people that are in charge now. But if we leave office, we're still be involved in the community when they start coming up, whether it's after high school, after college, we can say, hey, I can get you in touch with so-and-so. Yeah, of course I remember you from when you came and did the Girl Scout video. What is it that you majored in? Where can I put you that you're gonna be happy with, where you can get more experience? That's where I came from with the entire thing. That's all I have. Thank you.
Anybody else wanting to be heard on this item? Councilmember Knapp?
To answer your question, Liz, I think my perspective as far as what we're doing tonight was kind of more of a procedural improvement to the program in terms of, we're not going to say no to any kid, right? We want them to be engaged. I love the idea of expanding it further. I don't think we would necessarily act on that tonight, but it sounds like there's more discussion that's warranted. So I think it checks a lot of boxes of, okay, we kind of make it easier and bring more clarity around what the benefits of, or what you get out of the program. Fully acknowledge though what it doesn't address is, well, how do we make it more successful and increase the engagement, right? I don't think any resolution in and of itself is gonna do that.
Yeah.
So that's where this may be just a bit of a stepping stone or a building block to something broader. So I hope that answers your question, because in my eyes, it's, by all means, I'd love to have the kids here and see it, but we're not gonna say no. So why don't we just facilitate that pipeline a little bit easier to get into whatever that program is, and if we need to continue to develop it and figure out the ways to kind of get the tentacles out there, that's what's missing, and I'm sure we can continue to push forward with that. So that's what I got.
I agree with everything you three have said.
Yeah, point well taken from Councilmember Knapp, that it is a starting point, certainly. This is to provide a structure, an initial structure to a program that had very little structure to begin with, along with, you know, the age range, and as you mentioned, Madam Mayor, the resident of city of Oldsmar, as opposed to maybe putting something where anybody in the 34677 area code could participate. I'm definitely willing to consider this tonight, approve it as it is, and then approach that conversation further if we want to change it, to at least get some sort of baseline on what we're doing. I'm also open to, if everybody wants to, postponing this further to address those issues and approve it at a later date. Do we have any current teen members right now for any of the boards? Do we have current city members?
We had one application who did go to a meeting. We didn't bring his, I don't believe we brought his application forward to council for appointment, as we were in the process of changing it.
Okay.
But we do have one applicant.
Okay.
And to be clear, the things that I mentioned, I don't know that we need to change the resolution in order to accomplish those things. Tom might be able to provide some insight on that, but perhaps in implementing the procedures by which we kind of do this, those are some of the additional things that I wanted considered.
I just mentioned it because I see it in the actual
Yeah.
resolution with an age range for teenagers, so I don't know if that requires like a
Shelf, well, that's, yeah, the
a
section
different
4 is.
resolution to include like a younger program maybe?
Well, it says section 4, that teen members shall forfeit their eligibility on the date they attain the age of 18, but I don't have.
I'm looking at section 2.
Two?
It says
Okay.
teenagers ages 13 to
13.
18 may apply. So if you wanted to downgrade that to 5th grade, we would have to change that language, correct?
How old are kids in 5th grade?
And then, huh?
How old are kids in 5th grade? My kids aren't in 5th grade yet.
Like 10, younger than 13, yeah.
10.
10.
Should it be grade-based or age-based?
Well, we already discussed grade-based with the senior in high school.
Well, as far as a cap on it, but
Yeah,
not where it could
but that's-
begin.
yeah.
To me, my goal is less age-based and more focused on capturing the 5th graders before they leave Oldsmar for
Okay.
6th grade.
Yeah.
Well, and just as a thought too, like, obviously I don't have a 5th grader in my household at the moment. But just trying to think, you know, pragmatically about the purposes of the meetings, right? Is we want to expose the youth to how to be engaged within the city. Is a 10-year-old going to prove fruitful and perhaps not disruptive? I don't know. You know, every child is different, but it's how beneficial will it be for them? Because that's really, I think, the basis of it versus it, I don't necessarily know it provides benefit to the purposes of each of these advisory board meetings. Because they're not voting, they can certainly participate and provide input, but it's just, we start bringing it lower, is at what point
Yeah,
does it
I see what you're saying.
become, do more harm than good, essentially, you know? I don't know. Obviously, we haven't done it, we haven't teetered with that of
I don't know
where does the
that
bar,
I've ever.
as it relates to meetings.
Yeah, I just don't know that I've ever seen a teen member of any board ever speak, period.
Well, right, right.
Not that I'm aware of. I don't,
I mean,
I
maybe
haven't
the
been to
10, the
all of
10-year-olds
them.
might speak more.
Well, it's not necessarily about them speaking.
Sure.
It's just giving them a seat at the table. I think
Yeah.
that's more the idea. And, I mean, it's not,
I wonder if it's worthwhile for, we passed this as council now because it has a direct effect upon the advisory boards, but if there's recommendations from staff or from the city attorney regarding what other programs could be implemented within City Hall with members of city staff, whether they're shadow programs or if we work with the chamber, something that may not be under the purview of city council may be worthwhile. Get this going.
true.
Have it sent out as much as possible, especially with school right around the corner. And then say, okay, well, we have this program, and then we wouldn't have to say, well, from 5th grade to, when are you 13, 9th grade, so, or 8th grade? So 5th to 8th grade, you can do this, but just be like, there's also these other programs that the city has implemented. I don't want to make it burdensome upon the city, don't get me wrong, but I think the advisory boards are squarely within our purview. Some other program that may be able to include younger kids.
Sure.
Maybe, and if it falls within our purview, of course, city staff would bring it to us. But as this is now, I'm okay with moving forward with the understanding that that may come back to our desk,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
I would just caution you, these are very important boards. There is specific city business that has to be completed.
Right.
And so you need to keep that into consideration as the most important part of the process of these boards. It is not to have children involvement in it. That's kind of was an offshoot. So stay focused on the fact that these boards have things to do. The resolution as it currently exists says that they can participate. And so we don't want to get it to the point where we have 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds that are disruptive to these board meetings, but yet they legally have a right to be there because you've passed a resolution that says that they can participate, and then it starts to affect us getting business done that we need to get done. So I would just caution you on that. The bigger picture is the business of the day on each one of these boards is the very important stuff that needs to be accomplished. So.
I think that my concerns can be addressed with an addition to the tentative agenda. And we can move forward with a vote on this particular agenda item if there are any other questions, comments.
No further from me.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Liz, would you mind staying? I'll give you a ride home. Item number 11.
Item number 11 is to consider authorizing the city manager to certify a proposed millage rate of 4.05 mils to the Pinellas County Property Appraiser. The city's maintained a millage rate of 4.75 mils from 1988 to 1997. From 1998 to 2005, the millage rate was lowered to 4.65. In 2006, the millage rate was 4.60. In 2007, it was 4.0722. And in 2008 through 2025, it's been 4.05 mils. So you can see a systematic lowering over the years. In the current year, the taxable assessed value of the city increased from the prior year. The increase in current taxable values results in a rollback rate of 3.8683 mils. The rollback rate is a millage which will produce the same revenue as the previous year. Therefore, the rollback rate is lower than the proposed millage rate. Staff is proposing a millage rate of 4.05 for the 18th consecutive year. In order for the property appraiser to prepare required notices on proposed property taxes, which will be mailed to each property owner by August 18th, we must return the certification of taxable value to the property appraiser by July 29th. The council may adopt a lower millage rate based upon decisions at a budget work sessions or as a result of public hearings on the budget, which will be conducted in September. However, the council may not adopt a higher millage rate than the rate now being certified to the property appraiser. For a home assessed at $250,000 with a $50,000 homestead exemption, ad valorem taxes levied by the city would be $810. Staff recommends approval.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item number 12.
Is to consider adopting Resolution 2025-18, delegating signature authority to the city manager for HMPG grant applications and other associated documents. The city's applying for Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, HMPG, from FEMA for 3 separate projects, which are also on tonight's agenda, the next 3 items. And those are the gravity sewer lining, filter for capacity expansion, and the South Oldsmar Infrastructure Project. In order to complete the grant applications and the other associated documents, FEMA requires a resolution of the local governing body delegating signature authority to the city manager. The city attorney has reviewed the resolution as to form, and I will read it by title only. Resolution 2025-18, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Oldsmar, Florida, delegating signature authority to the city manager for the Federal Emergency Management Agency Hazard Mitigation Grant Program on behalf of the city and approving an effective date hereof. That is a reading of Resolution 2025-18 by title only.
The chair will entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. You could probably read just the resolution for the next.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Item number 13 is considering authorizing the city manager to submit a grant application to the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, Helene, for filter for capacity expansion. As a result of Hurricane Helene, the Florida Department of Emergency Management is proposing to allocate approximately $150 million to local governments in Pinellas County for the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. This specific project is to build out a 4th filter bay in the city's wastewater treatment facility. This will increase the treatment capacity, resulting in greater resilience, particularly during heavy rain events, and decreasing the risk of environmental damages and wastewater being discharged into Old Tampa Bay. The project will be to construct all of the pumps and controls necessary for the filter bay. Staff recommends approval.
Okay. Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item number 15.
Is to consider authorizing the city manager to submit a grant application to the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, Helene, for the gravity sewer lining project. This specific project will reduce the infiltration of storm surge groundwater, extend the life of existing collection pipes, thus reducing the quantity of water entering the water reclamation facility for treatment. The project will line gravity sewer, clay pipe, and manholes using a cure-in-place pipe. The pipe will be lined is the main trunk of the sewer system closest to the WRF. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this item? No. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And item 15.
Is consider authorizing the city manager to submit a grant application to the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program Helene for the South Oldsmar Infrastructure Project. This project will replace the water mains and a sewer force main, which is currently attached to the footbridge in Country Club. Funding is being requested for only the sewer main work because the water main work is ineligible for the type of funding. The force main relocation is critical to mitigate the risk of environmental contamination. The current footbridge location is particularly vulnerable to erosion from future storms, posing a significant risk of damage and potential sewer line failure. Relocating the force main will significantly reduce the neighborhood's vulnerability to environmental impacts in the storm for storm-related footbridge failure. Before I say staff recommends approval on this one, I just want to note that these grant applications are voluminous in nature. They require a lot of people on our staff participating to get these short deadlines accomplished. So, you know, we're ready. We're going to submit these grants on time. But I just want to say that on top of their normal workloads, I think I've said it before, but everybody from finance and public works and planning and my office is very involved in each of these grant applications. So
We do it at night, on the weekends,
as I
all the time, and our citizens often ask, do we apply for grants? Are we getting grants?
yes, and I don't know if we're going to get them, but it's
apply for
not
them.
for trying. So I will say that. And
We can apply for these because we were part of the LMS group, correct?
that is
A little bit of insight
correct.
into that, if you don't mind.
So the local mitigation strategy, you all adopted our countywide local mitigation strategy a few meetings ago. We are an active participant in a countywide effort to identify projects for these types of funds. And that's been ongoing for long
We've always
time.
done that. A
And
lot of cities don't do that.
that is correct. A lot of them don't actively participate as much as we do. And through that committee is how they come up with this priority list that enables you to submit the applications. Well, that alone takes phone calls after phone calls after phone calls. They also have an internal selection committee that ranks all the projects submitted for countywide.
Which hopefully you submitted in advance of them having money to distribute.
Exactly, and Daniel Simpson serves on that committee outside of preparing all of the documentation for us. He's reviewing all the applications countywide. So, so we're an active participant in that to enable us really to have funds that are projects that are eligible. As I said before, these projects will be proposed by FDEM. So whether or not we get them or not, I don't know. But we're in a good posture to put in the applications on time through the process.
Many
So-
thanks to staff who are working hard to make this happen.
Absolutely. And so with that, staff recommends approval.
And on the final one, the chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? Nope. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. City clerk.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I have item 10. No, I do not have item 10. I have item 16.
16.
Consider rescheduling the September
Yes.
9th, 2025 council meeting. So this is actually the second time we'll be rescheduling our first budget hearing. So we first did that on April 1st, and that was because our meeting was originally scheduled for September 2nd. However, in order to meet the state's TREM compliance, the first budget hearing must be held no earlier than September 3rd, which is why council rescheduled it to Tuesday, September 9th, just for that clarity. And then, so now, So according to the tax roll calendar sent by Pinellas County Property Appraiser, the Pinellas County School Board has scheduled their first hearing on Tuesday, September 9th.
Now we
As a
gotta
result, the first September meeting needs to be rescheduled. The dates that have been presented for council's consideration at 7 p.m. are Wednesday, September 3rd and Wednesday, September 10th. And now I will give it over for council to deliberate.
Okay, does anybody have a preference or a hard no?
Just to clarify, the original September 2nd meeting
Correct,
was rescheduled for the 9th,
correct.
and now we're rescheduling the 9th to either the 3rd or the 10th.
That is correct, because the school board decided to move theirs and we can't have ours any earlier, so,
Understood.
yeah.
I have no, favoritism over either date. I would maybe say the 3rd,
I'd prefer the 3rd,
just
Tom.
because
Do you
it's
have
the
any
first week.
scheduling conflicts?
Yeah, I have conflicts on both dates.
Okay.
I can send a different lawyer on the 10th, but there are no lawyers available out of the 8 of us for the 3rd. So you'd have to run it on the 3rd by yourself.
Well, that's
Challenge
terrifying. How about no? What would you recommend, city attorney? I would recommend the 10th.
I would suggest the 10th, and Nancy Meyer of our office would cover that meeting.
Understood. So
Motion to
everybody-
reschedule the originally scheduled September 2nd meeting, which was rescheduled to September 9th, 2025 to September 10th, 2025.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item number 17. I guess I could read it for myself. Request to excuse the absence of Mayor Katie Gannon from the July 1st, 2025 council meeting. Thank you, Vice Mayor Graber, for adding this request to the tentative agenda to excuse the absence of myself from the July 1 council meeting. In accordance with the resolution, I notified the city clerk of my anticipated absence in advance of the meeting, and I thank you for adding this to the agenda. I have two quick points. First, thank you, Vice Mayor, for handling that meeting.
Sure thing.
I appreciated it, especially on the last minute notice. Wear sunscreen.
Certainly.
Everybody wear sunscreen. And when they say surgery, they really mean surgery. They don't mean like you could go back to work the next day. They don't mean what I thought they meant, which is like we're going to scratch something off. It's a really actually big deal. So don't count on that. Anyway,
Glad to have you back.
the chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item besides wearing sunscreen?
No.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, council comments. Take me there, Swagger.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
My hand off.
I'll be brief. A great meeting tonight. Lots of rich discussion, but thank you, Mayor, for starting the meeting off, in a moment of silence for the Chester family, as well as Stephen Phillips. I actually went to school with Corey Chester, so
Did you really?
yeah, thoughts and prayers are with his family. And then just another thing, my mother-in-law actually had bypass surgery on Friday. She's doing really well, so just keep her in your prayers. Hopefully coming home in the next day or two, but that came out of nowhere. Went in Thursday for just a check, and doctor said you're staying put. So I
You know
get
what
surgery.
that's like, yeah.
So,
but less degree of
but she's
severity.
doing well. It's miraculous, the doctors at St. Joseph's, and just the advanced
Wow.
technology. So that's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Knapp?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. Just to also add on, comment on the discussion earlier about CRAs. I know there's definitely some near-term stuff that I'm sure we'll all be staying apprised of, and maybe some further out stuff when it comes up to next session, when we decide we need to act and choose a path of up or down as it relates to our CRA. So obviously more to come on that. I would just like to comment on Mike Boylan. I know we're all very proud of him. I know nobody could see on camera the amount of pride and happiness and love that you could see coming from the back corner of his family. just how much they're just so proud of their dad, and it shows every time you see them. And the girls are just giggling when their dad is up there talking about what he loves. So thank you to the Boylan family, for doing all that you do on behalf of the city. And then just one final thing, I'm sure maybe some of y'all saw on social media, I got the chance to go up on my first flight on Sunday.
I did see
So
that.
in the future, if you, I don't know if I'll be allowed to, but in the future, if you happen to see a plane maneuvering somewhere up around above your household, you can just take a guess. It might be me doing steep banking turns to practice and get a license. So looking forward to that. Haven't
Pretty cool.
figured out all the commitments yet. I know it's a little bit of a financial one and obviously a time, so figuring out how all that fits into the schedule, but I'm looking forward to that. And so didn't get to see it on my first flight from closely above the city, but I plan to in the future. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Very cool.
There's an app, and you can actually hold up to see what.
See my face,
Yeah,
like,
see if it's you or not. So I'll be looking.
I'll send it to
Flight
you
tracker.
before, like, watch out, I'm in the air.
I'm
Big
about to
shelter.
leave my house, yeah. Councilmember Tarzaski.
Yes, also try to keep it short. Thank you to the Girl Scouts who came. I love the video, and I get excited anytime we have youth in the building, so I'm excited about the motion we passed, getting some structure to our teen program, and the ideas we have on further expanding that and getting more involvement. And excited about the chamber having opportunities for the entrepreneurship at the Saturday market. I love that. I've been out there and I've bought some things from some of the kids who are out there. So I have a pair of earrings. I got a couple snacks. So I'm excited about that. And I'm have been interested in trying to expand that in Oldsmar in general, trying to get youth involved, teens especially. And so I'm excited to see some of that coming to fruition. Also, if people watching from home don't know, there is a good portion of the Oldsmar Pier that is now open. It was reviewed by engineers, structurally sound for the portion that is open, and we are in process working on moving forward on fixing the part that's not open. But go enjoy the part that's open. I know people have been asking about it. That's it.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. And I do want to say, welcome back.
Thank you.
It was my pleasure to serve in your stead. Everyone, as I asked them before the meeting, was on their best behavior.
Mommy's here, daddy's here.
It was, I think they all kind of felt it was a different sort of like,
Yeah.
let's go.
Did you bang the gavel that much?
No, just, it was like 22 times. So, I did want to say, Councilmember Knapp, congratulations on your first flight. I hearken back to when I was in the audience. I do hearken back to when I was in the audience, and Mayor Gannon was on council at the time, and we had a poet laureate appointed in the city, and council had to write a poem, and not everyone wrote one, but Councilmember Knapp's, I remember it distinctly, I think it was your first year on council.
Oh, yeah.
You wrote a
Wow.
poem about how you needed to come up with the nerve, with the energy, to finally get up and fly. And I mean it sincerely. When I saw the post, I swear to God.
You remember that?
Yes. So,
The content was
and even
definitely.
explain what happened today. So when I saw the post, I immediately said, "Oh man, he finally did it." Because I was like, "Man, that's really cool." Because he opened himself up during the
Yeah,
the
when
poetry
Amanda was
portion.
giving us the prompts
Yeah,
for
and
the
he was
poet.
reading it, and I remember he just said, "Just fly." I believe those are the last two words, but I remember it as an indelible mark in my head,
I will
something
go
like that.
find it.
Yeah,
I'll
I know
read
the
it
last-
at the next
I
meeting.
know the last word was fly. Yeah, I just remember that, and I was just like, "Oh, that's
Something about
cool."
I cannot wait to get up and fly.
Yeah, it was, but you were just adamant about it, so it was just something that
That's
I
really cool.
remembered, and one of those things that, of course, Councilmember Knapp and I have been at this for quite a while, and we both used to sit in the audience together. That's how we became friends. And so when he got up there, I was just like, man, I really hope he gets to do that. He did. I'm elated. Congratulations. That's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
3 generations. I mean, that's what it means a lot to me, because
That's
it's me, my
really
dad,
cool.
and my dad's dad, all
great.
piloting.
That's really neat. I don't have much to add other than, you
fly a
guys. What?
You can fly a plane?
I did not fly a plane. I did, however, win a trophy.
Yeah, there it is.
I know that I was absent at the last meeting, at which time I would have loved to show this off, but you guys will be glad to know that the city of Oldsmar myself was victorious by a slight margin in the peanut butter and jelly challenge between myself and the Upper Tampa Bay Chamber of Commerce, Mark Howe, CEO. I raised, I believe I collected 1,028 jars and he collected 1,005. But being the honorable man that he is, he did not count the additional 30 jars he received after the 4 o'clock p.m. deadline on the date it was due. So just from, and this is important to note too, that means we collected more than 2,068 jars of peanut butter just from the challenge. That's not including the other jars of peanut butter and jelly that might have been donated, for example, at the tailgate party or in other bins around town. So that is fantastic. We had a great time doing it. I have a feeling the chamber is already collecting for next year because they're coming at me with a vengeance. But I wanted to thank Sharon Edwards, everybody at Oldsmar Cares, Jessica Ward, everybody at Walmart. We had citywide participation on this. It was a lot of fun, and I wanted to thank you all for supporting me to the extent that you did. If you didn't, shame on you. But we have this really cool trophy now to hand perhaps to our city manager. She could put it up in the city office for now, because, like I said, I think they're coming for me. We have some incredibly generous donors. One in particular that came through with 360 jars with 3 hours to go for me. Wow. Yeah. So we won't name names, but the W is a W, right? Okay. Separate and apart from that, I attended the TDC meeting. Fun fact, they distribute millions and millions of dollars in a manner that's not that dissimilar from the way that we distribute the council budget. It's insane. I'll share more about that later, but in a minute, I'm going to add something to the tentative agenda, but I'm just going to say this out loud because I'm going to verbally ask that both David McKinley and Liz Martin and perhaps other members of the Alliance, if they're out there listening and they want to be involved in what I'm talking about, or if it touches their heart to bring their children or to offer some support for some kind of programming, I would like to do more than have ex officio teen members on our boards. I agree that that is fantastic. It's a good place to start, but it's not enough. It's just not enough. I am the mayor of our city. I know where my kids are zoned to go to school, and it scares me. That's a problem. I know there are people out there who have great experiences with our zone schools. I'm not discounting that. What I'm saying is there's other people just like me. And I think there's an opportunity for us to hold those parents or those children in those families just a little bit closer. And if it can be through a shadowing program like I brought up a couple of years ago, or through something else that I can't remember all the things that you said earlier, Vice Mayor, forgive me.
Neither can I.
But I'd like to add to the agenda the creation of some kind of program, even if it's as informal as a shadowing program or something. I'd like for them to be able to come with their parents to Citizens Academy. We have to do more. And I think that our response to the hurricanes and what we saw after that, and these kids going to school, we saw how, they literally lost everything, and they were looking to us for help. They're looking to their hometown, and we were there for them, and we can be there for them in other ways, especially in the constantly changing face of legislative initiatives, of funding changes, of AI initiatives that are coming to schools to teach our children in light of the fact that schools in our areas, including Oldsmar Elementary's, lost units because there are fewer kids enrolled in the schools, so they're getting less Title I funding, and so we're losing teachers. You know, it's a problem. It's a problem. It creates social fractioning and it creates disassociation. And it's not that I think that our city needs to be an arm of, you know, we're not a nonprofit. I get that. But what I am saying is that we can partner similarly that like we have with the Alliance. We can use our collective knowledge and we can partner with the Alliance in ways to accomplish that goal. So I don't know what I'm about to say in a minute, but this is not something I'm going to shut up about. It's important to me. And I hope it's important to all of you because you have kids. Anyway, okay, that's all I have. Item number 19 is to consider approval of the tentative agenda for the August 5th, 2025 council meeting. And I would like to add, help me, Vice Mayor.
Discussion of expanding opportunities for the youth of Oldsmar within city government,
Our partnership with city government,
in partnership with city government, is that?
wordsmith it, okay? The chair will entertain a motion to approve the tentative agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this matter? I have a motion and a second, no discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye, excuse me, aye, motion passes. Oh, I am tired. Okay. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion does not require a vote. We are adjourned. Thank you all. Things to sign tonight? Okay.